Move, kids, vamonos.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone, to the Awful Takes podcast, episode 42.
Yeah, that's the meaning of life. For any of you Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. It is approaching end of July. Thank you guys for joining us. This is a show where we talk about movies, music recommendations, and we have really awful takes about them. So if you're joining us for the first time, how we structure our shows is we talk about movie news that we find interesting in the beginning, and then we move on to our movie review / recommendation. Me and Wallied kind of take turns recommending movies maybe we have seen or haven't seen, and we hope that you guys check them out as well. My name is Nabahi.
Hello, I'm Wallied from Sir Gator Productions.
And I'm going through it right now, not to get too much in my personal life, but I guess I just want to have this as like a timestamp. I'm kind of in like a weird kind of limbo zone right now. I just feel out of it. But for me, something that always helps me is definitely just talking about passions, talking about movies and things like that. So I do apologize if maybe I sound a little different this episode or something. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Yeah, very excited.
Ooh, yeah, our first M. Night film.
I know.
So I can't believe it's taken so long.
That's crazy.
But
yeah. We're going to be talking about Signs today, one of my favorite movies. But before we get into that, there's some movie news that came out in the past couple weeks that we never really got the chance to talk about. But I kind of wanted to take the time just because I don't recall ever seeing something like this happen. As we know, next year is the release of Christopher Nolan's next movie, The Odyssey, which me and Wallied have been talking about for a bit now.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, and there's speculation and things like that. And out of nowhere, when they released the poster, they were gearing up for this trailer release in IMAX, things like that. And you started to hear a little bit more about it. But obviously with Nolan, it's still very kind of secretive, I guess, or not too much information.
Yeah.
Even the poster is just like, kind of just like one image.
It's ambiguous.
Doesn't really say much. But I guess with the Odyssey, obviously most people might know the story, And then out of nowhere, tickets go on sale for certain 70 millimeter print screenings, which for those of you guys who don't know, most films today, when they're shown in theaters, are through digital. It's just a digital format, and they have the projection and everything just running off kind of like a hard drive. Or back in the day, obviously there used to be these film reels,
actual film,
and literally. It would project these images, with sound and everything like that. And for people like Nolan, who are kind of, the film purists, film snobs, yep. Which I'm not knocking it in any way. I don't want it to sound like a diss or anything, but they like to preserve, how film was kind of originally started. So they do these 70 millimeter screenings where they have these giant reels of film and they're put on this projection reel. Like, I remember seeing a picture of Oppenheimer, like the 70 millimeter print, and it's all rolled up. It's like
so huge. It's like as big as like a living room or something.
Yeah, ginormous. So out of nowhere, tickets go on sale and they sell out instantly. And I was just thinking, like, in my head, I was like, maybe this is a mistake. Maybe they accidentally put them on sale or whatever. And then comes to find out it actually did go on sale. And I was like, wait, what? And people are reselling these seats and everything like that. There's all that stuff going on. I've never really seen a movie go on sale a year in advance. I mean, Wally, do you have any instance in your head that you can think of that, like a film tickets going on sale this early,
No, not that I could really think of at the top of my head. I guess this is a first, but I'm not too surprised considering it's Christopher Nolan. Everybody they're kind of building up hype and everything now for this film, though. I don't think you really need hype. I mean, Nolan's just a name like right there that you can just like sell like a whole film for. But yeah, this is very surprising to hear. I'm just like in shock that tickets would go on sale that quickly. But I wonder though if anybody will get those like really like front row seats, just so they could see the action
just to say they've been there.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But yeah.
Honestly, like I'm not like upset about it, but the thing I guess that kind of just throws me for a loop is like, is it even, do they have like a first edit done, you know, like do they even know like what they're selling, like how long is this movie gonna be, you know, things like that. I'm just like,
yeah,
that's kind of strange to, well, granted it happens all the time in the video game industry, but taking someone's money before you even kind of have
I guess like pre-orders,
before you have like your finished product, you know, I'm just like, that's kind of interesting because I feel like when tickets go on sale,
it's usually like a few months in advance.
And the movie's done, you know, so they kind of know, okay, the movie's this runtime, you know, it's this, and now I'm just like, okay, this is a year in advance. I really doubt they have, you know, a first edit done or even that, you know, so that's very strange. If it's something that might continue, granted, I think this might be a one time kind of thing just because it is Nolan, you know, and we're coming off the big success of Oppenheimer. People are excited. And, you know, his name is just only going up, especially after, you know, his Oscar wins and everything like that.
That winning Best Picture.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like a once in a lifetime situation. But a year in advance is really kind of just shocked me.
Yeah, that's a first for sure. You know, especially for 70 millimeter screenings, it's like, wow, this must be like something really epic.
Yeah, honestly. So if you guys are looking forward to the Odyssey, let us know what you think. If you bought your tickets already, let us know what you think.
And then we'll get to see a real life monster and real life wooden boats.
But we'll be talking about it more and more when it comes, you know, more news starts coming out. Just because obviously I'm super excited for it.
It is, aside from the Zendaya Tom Holland thing, but you know.
Speaking of, I guess, movies that we're excited for, I mean, Wallied, I know we did this last year and I'm kind of throwing this on you, but are there any, we're halfway through the year now. What movies do we have left that we're kind of excited about? Also, maybe there's some other movies that we didn't know at the beginning of the year that now we're kind of finding out about. What are you kind of anticipating in this second half of the year?
Yeah, that's true. There was I think I had told you this a couple weeks ago or a week ago, but one that I completely forgot to mention when we mentioned our most anticipated films is a film that from one of my all-time, if not my second favorite filmmaker ever, Edgar Wright. He has a new film coming out called The Running Man with Glenn Powell, which I'm still shocked with that pairing too.
Crazy.
I have no idea what direction it's going to be going into. I know from kind of what I heard or when we kind of talked about it last time during movie news was like it was going to be something maybe more like in line with the adaptation Stephen King did for that story. So I'm very like interested to see what kind of direction Edgar Wright will bring to this. I'm very excited for it nonetheless. I love Glenn Powell. He's been one of my favorite up-and-coming actors the last few years and everything, especially with Josh Brolin also joining too. That's something that I also think is great because I love Josh Brolin as an actor and everything. And so, yeah, I'm very excited for it though nonetheless. I'm very interested to see what direction and what Edgar Wright will offer to the film. That's definitely my most anticipated, I would say, for the remainder of the year. Just because I'm just such a massive fan of Edgar Wright's, and I'll watch anything that guy makes.
Honestly, I will say with The Running Man, I'm still very excited. I'm obviously going to see it day one. You know, I'm not going to try to wait or anything.
Same.
But I will say the trailer that they released didn't really elevate my excitement in any way. You know, I felt like the trailer was kind of put together by like one of those marketing companies and stuff.
Yeah.
And it just felt like, I was like, this just feels kind of weirdly put together.
Yeah. Cause I felt that way with like Sinners too. When I saw like a bit of like the teaser trailer for it, I was like, that looks okay, you know, and then I saw the movie and it was just like, it totally caught me off guard and surprised me. So I wonder if it'll maybe kind of be something similar to that.
Yeah. So that's just as far as the look of it, I guess, and things like that. I'm still going to see it. I mean, obviously it's Edgar Wright. Like you really can't get better than that. And
I mean, he really has yet to miss with me, honestly.
And it's been a while since his last movie, so obviously the excitement's really high, you know. So let's. I really hope he knocks it out of the park and everything, just because. Yeah, I'm very excited for it. But we'll have to wait and see. I know for me, a movie that I've mentioned before, but I didn't expect to get this excited for it, and I guess it's kind of on the opposite end of with this trailer that I was talking about. The trailer for this movie, the first one came out, it looked okay, and I was just like, yeah, obviously it's part of a franchise I like, so I kind of just left it. But recently, I think it was like a week ago, they released another trailer, and out of nowhere, man, that just shot up my excitement, and I am just like, wow, I have to see this. We just talked about Alien versus Predator, and it's this movie, the new Predator, called Predator Badlands.
Oh, yeah, nice.
And again, like, I was pretty excited. Obviously, we're coming off of Prey. It's the same director. And then they had the Predator Killer of Killers animated movie that came out, which
I'm excited to see that.
I thought was really good. And again, Badlands, like, it didn't have the most intriguing concept. I guess kind of just touching on it. It's just, I guess, a predator on their home world or something. And they're going through like this trial or whatever. And I just kind of left it at that. And then out of nowhere, this second trailer comes out and introduces this other character that I didn't really know was going to be in the movie. Man, I don't know what it is about that combination between like a predator and this side character. They were really highlighted really well in the trailer. And I was just like, whoa, like that's just such a cool idea, such a cool pairing. And now I'm just super excited for this movie. It's just akin to the trailer, you know, because I'll be honest, when The Predator was coming out, the Shane Black one, I wasn't really too excited.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. And same thing with Predators, you know, back in the day. Like, something about this trailer really just kind of elevated the franchise for me to actually be really, really excited. You know, even for the trailers with Prey, I wasn't too excited, you know?
Yeah, that was a big surprise. I actually ended up like really liking that one.
Yeah. So I'm not going to really spoil the kind of, you know, things that the trailer hints at, but color me excited because that really did such a great job of elevating my excitement. You know?
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, guys, let us know what you guys are excited for the rest of the year. And, you know, maybe it's a movie we don't know about. Maybe it's something that, you know, is kind of sneaking up out of nowhere.
Something that'll maybe pop up during TIFF or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. We are on to the movie review today.
Yeah. What do we got, Nabahi?
We have M. Night Shyamalan's 2002 movie. This was coming off of the release of Unbreakable, Sixth Sense before that. So M. Night was in a very strange place. Not a strange place, but an elevated place because we were kind of hyping him up, you know. I remember before this movie came out, there was those news articles and things like that saying, "Is M. Night the next Spielberg?" You know, there was just a wave of excitement around this director because obviously he was 2 for 2. You know, he was doing really, really good, and people were anticipating that next movie, you know. And this movie works for some people. This movie also might not work for other people. This wasn't a super divisive film, but I will say in more recent years, I've heard people this movie's kind of split with the reception. You know, either people really like it or it falls apart for them. I think it's a really good movie. It's something that I've always loved and I always rewatch all the time. It might be my most rewatched M. Night movie compared to some of his other movies, you know?
Okay. Nice.
This movie is Signs. Like I said, came out 2002. What you have is a family going through a tough time. You know, there was depressive situation that they're trying to navigate through, you know, and in the midst of all that, there is an alien invasion that is beginning to happen, and the whole world is getting affected by this. And what does that do to a family who already is having trouble, keeping things together. They're already having trouble with this situation that they're going through,
Their relationships are also just very strained at the beginning too.
Exactly. So this movie opens up in, I think it's very intentional with this kind of opening credits scene. It feels very sci-fi B-movie type opening, with the music and everything, with the way the credits are too. I'm just like
that bright baby blue.
Yeah.
Too.
And I feel like that was very intentional to kind of get people into what they're going to be watching. This movie has two aspects to it that, in my personal opinion, they complement each other really well. You have the personal drama side that the family is struggling with, and then you have this whole sci-fi horror alien invasion storyline. And right away, the movie just kind of jumps into it. You're already introduced to many of our main characters. They're investigating this crop circle that appeared, and it's hinted at that, they're trying to find the logical way of how did this happen. There's a lot of hints being dropped in this kind of main opening and everything that I think people don't fully realize, and it might take a couple rewatches to kind of pinpoint what this movie was doing. So already they start to hint at these characters have this relationship. For instance, right away, this cop who's investigating everything is referring to this character as father. Obviously people of the Catholic religion know exactly what that is. So already you get a feel of this kind of history that is not really told, but it kind of adds just this layer to it of, okay, these characters have history,
I loved how quickly it establishes it in that first interaction. I also really love that cop's introduction where she's just telling this really funny story about a scare, and then she's all, oh, so what happened with your crops? Yeah,
really though. And then it has this, in these characters kind of knowing each other, it establishes this kind of small town feel, of these people kind of look after each other. They also, know about each other's lives and everything like that.
Yeah. They act kind of strangely too, which makes sense for a small town.
Yeah. And we're introduced to the main character and his family. And right away, we're introduced to these main kids who, honestly, in my opinion, they do a really good job with their performances.
They act like kids.
Yeah. You have Bo and you have Morgan. One played by Rory Culkin, the other played by Abigail Breslin. And they do such a good job, man. This is not an easy movie or role for a kid,
Exactly. Especially Bo's performance of her kind of reacting with the water and everything. Yeah. And you kind of see her acting a bit more strangely compared to some of the other family members in the film, Mm-hmm. You can tell she's gone through a lot and she's kind of trying to figure out the world that she's living in, mm-hmm. which is a very hard thing, I think, to pull off, especially for a child actor and things like that. But I think M. Night did a really solid job of being able to direct her through that whole kind of thing that she was going through with the water and everything.
Yeah. And they're thrown into this hard situation. The dog that they have one of them is acting very strange. And that's something that I like in horror movies when animals and stuff kind of have that sense that humans don't have, that something isn't right. This dog is just not eating, just very much, just kind of seldom and everything. And the kids are trying to get it to, drink water, things like that. And the dog just turns aggressive. And man, that scene just really is super
scary.
Tense. Yeah.
Especially the aftermath of the kid basically having to kill his dog is really sad. And as someone, I've actually never mentioned this, but I have a fear of dogs actually. Mm-hmm. So dogs do scare me a lot. I get kind of a little tense and jumpy when I see a dog kind of acting aggressive like that. So that definitely really got to me for sure. And that whole kind of fear of what's going on, that fear of why is the dog acting like that,
So they're forced to go through this situation, and they can't explain it. They can't explain what's going on. And there was a line that I like right before the dog, kind of starts attacking. The dad does not want to call the veterinarian, which is a very, very fast, very quick hint. And it kind of goes over most people's heads. But Graham kind of makes it a point of like, oh, maybe we could, I forget what he says, but he's like, maybe we shouldn't call the vet or something, which is, in hindsight, you don't really pay much attention to it, but after you see the movie, it's like, oh, okay.
Shows his character a bit too.
Yeah, it's like, I get what was going on.
Yeah, it's very subtle.
Yeah,
I was like, that's kind of shocking, to see that in like an M. Night film. It's like, it's crazy, because he doesn't do subtlety all that much, especially in his more recent films. So it's kind of surprising to like see that a bit in this movie.
Yeah, and after this situation, Reverend Graham, he has a hard time kind of processing what happened.
He tries to find, I think, like, he's trying to find a meaning in the unknown, especially after like, his wife's death and everything, and him losing his faith. I think it's like he starts like questioning everything. Everything starts getting kind of like existential with him. He needs to find meaning in what's going on, but it's like, for me, at least what I kind of interpret is like, you can't find meaning in some of the things that do happen that are out of our control,
Yeah. After that situation, there's just kind of a hint of like the unexplainable. I love that this movie has that kind of feel to it of like just the sci-fi in it just feels unexplainable, and I think that's something that when this movie does try to explain things, I think that's where it hinders a lot of people's enjoyment, because in the beginning and everything, there's just kind of this mystery to it.
There's this kind of like fear of the unknown. And I guess for me, before like they kind of explain it, my kind of interpretation of it was like, it was kind of more just like all in their heads, it's that like anxiety of like mass hysteria, especially, I mean, look at COVID, like how many times do we see like the media portraying it as like this scary horror thing, and I kind of see the aliens as like this kind of horror thing that the news like portrays of like trying to instill fear in people. With that, you see that it brings this family oddly together, whereas like in the beginning they're very isolated and everything, but you see like that brings them this scary thing ends up kind of bringing them together, and it's an odd way. It's like it shows you how important like family is in a sense.
In the beginning, they're trying to find logical explanations for what's going on, which is an aspect that really kind of elevates the horror side of it, because oftentimes when we're going through these, situations, you try to find the logical explanation for what's going on. You try to find an idea in your head that can help, soothe you, can help, get you through this event. And
maybe find a little bit of like a ray of light at that end of the tunnel too.
And they love the cop and everything. They're like, who created these crop circles? Maybe is this group of boys, things like that. They try to attribute it like, okay, maybe it's
some other
something
person.
human. Yeah.
I love Joaquin Phoenix's performance in this, but not only that, I love his arc of like him basically being like, yeah, it's just a bunch of people making this up who've never had a girlfriend, to him literally being like obsessed, and him like literally he can't stop watching the news and seeing like everything on the TV. I love the little intro quote you gave where he's like seeing this like alien thing and everything for like the first time. I remember when I first saw it when I was a kid, I remember that scene scared the living crap out of me. And I remember that scene stuck with me so much these like last 10 years and everything. And it's just like such a haunting image to see, Yeah.
The buildup of that scene works really, really well. It's something that, less is more, very much. I feel like they were taking notes from Spielberg directing Jaws. You know, the less you see of the monster and everything, the more your imagination kind of has room to run wild. You know?
And I think those are the best kinds of horror films too, is when a lot of it is that fear of the unknown. It's on a more psychological level, honestly, at some points, you know, especially with like the drinking water is not good, or you see how the townspeople react, you know. You can tell a lot of them are lost, especially after Graham decided to kind of give up being like father, you know.
But in the beginning of this movie, they hint at this alien, and you see just, you know, very simple, you know, shots, very fast, but it adds to that tension, you know. The scene where he's asleep in the room, and then Bo comes in and is, you know, there's a monster outside my room, and Dad goes to look and sees this, you know, thing on the roof. It was very fast, and it really just was like, holy shit. Or later on when he's in the crop circles and
that
he
also
hears
scared
these
the living crap
noises
out of me.
and he sees, you know, this leg kind of move, and it's just unexplainable, you know, and it really adds to that. I love the forced perspective of you are with the family, and it doesn't really branch outside of that. Even when other, you know, clips and things are shown, you're still watching it from the family's perspective. Like you mentioned with that scene where Meryl's watching it on this TV, it doesn't just like zoom in, and it doesn't just, you know, clear up the image, and now you're watching like a retelling, you know, through cameras and things like that. You're watching the footage that's on the TV. You're still in that perspective of this family. You know?
And I love that they show it in like that kind of news footage and everything, because I feel like it makes it so much scarier, you know, because it's kind of like that found footage thing of like, that looks almost like something you could see.
And that's the best part for me with horror movies, is when they stay in that forced perspective. You know, I hate it when horror movies, they just cut and you're with the monster or something, you know, just things like that. I'm just like, you lose so much of that fear. You lose so much of that tension by taking the perspective and going to someone like a monster or something. I hate that in movies. Like, that's something that a lot of horror movies did in the 2010s and things like that. And I just don't know why. I'm like, I can't explain that. It's like, did we not watch Jaws or, you know, the first Halloween and really see that when you're in the perspective of your main character, there's that fear of the unknown? Just like the main character, you don't know where this thing's at. You're just like kind of left with what you're being given. And that's what this movie does so well, is, at least for me, is just adds to that tension. And then when you get to kind of even the first reveal of it, it's not even a clear image, and your mind is still just trying to process what you're seeing. And it's just like, holy crap, that's terrifying, you know?
Yeah,
and
it's scary.
That is, for me, just a really great cinematic choice of sticking with that, you know. There's obviously all the talk with Shyamalan now about his movies and things, but we have to acknowledge that choice, because that's still one of the most kind of impactful shots in horror movies in general, is that scene with the birthday party, you know. What a shocking, like,
it's
first
haunting
reveal of, you know, what you're you just can't even really like understand it, you know. And
it's just like, it's like so burned into your memory. It's like a cursed image that you would see on like online or something.
And it's like, if it were to, honestly, back in the day, my mind kind of attached to the idea, like, if we are ever gonna see aliens or something like that, I guarantee that's what the image would look like. It wouldn't be something super clear or things like that. It would be just kind of like someone at home with a video recorder, and man, that just adds to it. Another thing that I really enjoy with this movie, maybe it kind of puts like a false narrative in people's heads, but there is a nice attention to the alien intelligence aspect of it, you know. And what I mean is just the way these people are talking about the aliens, especially the son.
This little book.
Yeah, he has this book that he gets from this library, and it has all these ideas, theories about aliens and things like that. And that really attached to me as a kid. I remember saying it in a couple other episodes. I was super into UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, things like that. And there's that nice attention to detail with it, like there's a scene where Morgan is describing this two types of scenarios. If aliens were to invade, there more than likely are going to be two kind of reasons as to what's going on. Either they're here because they need resources, they're here for something about this planet that is maybe something that they don't have, and maybe they're reaching out to make contact, things like that, which is one side of the scenario, which seems pretty hopeful and things like that.
Yeah.
And then he jumps to this other scenario, or they're hostile. They're here to invade, and they basically are going to kill us,
Yeah.
And that paints a very scary image in your head. And when he's describing this, it's something that is an attention to detail that isn't super needed. I don't think it's something that really, if you take it out, I would miss it, but I'm very glad that it's there, that side of this kid reading these books and things like that, listening to all these, professors and things like that talk about this stuff really adds that nice layer, at least for me as like a fan of aliens and things like that. And I love that the dad just tries to dismiss it. He like makes fun of the author's name. And it's just like to him, like this is just a bunch of crazy talk. And it's still funny that he's like trying to have a way out when he's been seeing this stuff,
Yeah. I kind of appreciate too that even after that, he's still like just very open with his kids, because you can kind of tell he doesn't have like the best relationship with Morgan. Yeah. And I think the second half, showcases that a lot better also. But I love in that when they're showing the book and everything, he's like going through like the images in the book and everything. And I love the shot of like where it's like a painted image and it looks exactly like their house. And there's just like these 3 corpses like right there on the floor. Yeah. That is just such a terrifying, disturbing image to have in your head of like, because like the film is like it's a sign of like things to come, or that's like a big part of the film is like these coincidences and miracles and things like that do happen, and I think that scene really showcases that really well.
And it has the film has that other side of the coin of, are you noticing the signs? Are you inept to them? Are you aware that they're there?
Yeah. Or are they just coincidence?
Yeah. Or are you going to try to dismiss them, or, just try to be like, it's not really anything.
It's not real. Yeah. I love the monologue too that the father gives to Meryl about like, are you on the side of faith, or are you on the side of like, oh, it's just coincidence and everything like that? And I love Meryl has so many funny moments in this film, and I love the moment where he's all, yeah, I was about to kiss this girl, but then I like spit out my gum and she ended up throwing up, and he's all, I got really lucky. That would have been a really embarrassing moment for me. I love that. And like, I think that's something that surprised me so much rewatching this, is like, there is a lot of humor in this film, even with the dark stuff that is going on, especially with like the anxiety of like these aliens and, the family feeling disconnected and disjointed after a loss and going through that grief. There's still like moments of lightheartedness throughout that I like really appreciate M. Night putting in this film for, and it feels like a nice moment to like just breathe with the characters and everything.
I like the family dynamic. It doesn't feel like something
just
that's
actors.
Traditional, it doesn't feel just like, an average family. They have their weird sides, they have their quirks and everything, but I think that makes them feel a bit more relatable, like you said with Joaquin Phoenix, like has that humor side to him. He feels very much like just kind of that family uncle,
Yeah, exactly.
Who has these stories or does something outlandish, and each character in this family has like their own kind of arc that they go through, and especially with someone, being tied to obviously kind of a family of faith, with Meryl and everything, is just like, he's on the other side of everything. He's judging things from his perspective. He's very much a person that, takes in information and really doesn't try to have just, you know, the craziest answer to it. You know, like when he's sitting in that closet watching this footage, he kind of does that on his own will because they take the TV away because that's all the kids were doing, you know. But there he is in the closet now. He's watching it.
Now he's like obsessed with it.
Yeah, which is great. And that honestly, if there were a situation where you were watching the end of the world happen, but you didn't know that's what was happening, you would be very obsessed over what was going on, man. Yeah. The shots on this TV that they have are just great. Like there's just
the one with like the lights and like Mexico
and that voiceover of like, you know, just the way that guy acts out those lines. As that newscaster, he's like, you know, these lights were spotted over Mexico, you know, 24 hours ago. And then it just keeps progressing. Then you just see now there's more lights. And then Meryl's like, earlier the footage was going on and you see a bird fly and it hits, you know, in the middle of the sky and it drops all the way down. And he's just super into it, you know. Man, that just really just kind of, it adds to that fear, at least for me personally. Again, like with this being this alien invasion story, I'm like, whoa, like that's scary. You know?
It's like you're being updated as he's watching it.
Yeah. And again, it's from the perspective of the family. Like it never cuts to
another character or maybe Mexico. Like newscaster.
Yeah. Even when he's describing, he's like, you know, they went out, they tried to find this bird and they found it and its head was, you know, smashed in, and they don't show you that footage, but just his recounting of the story again fills your mind with what its might implications. That look like.
Yeah,
you know?
Really great implications.
Yeah, and like Wallied said, there's just great humor in this too. Like I love this scene where Meryl and Graham are, you know, they think someone's outside their house, and Meryl has this crazy idea of like, you know, what we should do. We just run out. It's those group of boys, you know, we just run out. We go in opposite directions and we try to scare them, you know.
That's a
and
great
we just
scene.
Act insane with anger, you know, screaming and
he's all, I don't curse.
It's so funny. I love this scene so much. I die laughing every time I see it. And they obviously run out and they circle around the house to try to both meet up and kind of pin this guy.
He's all, I'm angry and agitated.
Yeah, he's like, I'm insane with anger, you know, and it just feels so unnatural. And then you have Meryl, you know, he's, I'm going to tear your head off, you know, it's so hilarious. And then they get to the other side and this thing just totally jumps on the roof. And I love the shots of, again, you're just still, now you're getting their reaction. You don't even see this thing. And it just has this shot of both characters like looking up, and then it shows it like jumping over all the way into the crop field. And it's just like, holy shit, you know, this is crazy.
Love that they like show it with like shadows too. Yeah. Maybe you see like just like a shadow of its like hand or something. And
it's amazing. Yeah. And then again, funny moment right after that, you have the cop. She's like, you know, I've seen these Scandinavian women in the Olympics jump clear over my head. Meryl's like, if a Scandinavian Olympian was in our crop field last night, what else might it be, you know? Again, the humor in it is just so funny, you know?
She's all, I don't appreciate your sarcasm.
Yeah, I really like that. I guess I'll get into kind of some of the things that don't work for me too much in the movie. Mm-hmm. Some of the dialogue does feel a little unnatural at points.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. Some of the line choices I felt like maybe could have been better, but it's an M. Night movie, you know. I don't think dialogue is sometimes his strongest aspect of screenwriting, but
I guess for me, it kind of gives it that kind of alien-like quality, I guess. So it does kind of work for me a little bit at points, but it does feel like a little clunky at like a few points in like the beginning, especially like when he's kind of like interacting with the kids and everything for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, or the kids are kind of giving these like things where I'm like, I don't know if a kid would kind of say something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That is definitely something that is on rewatch, something that I notice more and more. Mm-hmm. It could have been maybe tightened up a little bit, but at the end of the day, it just feels very serviceable. It adds to a lot of the strengths that I think this movie has.
Yeah, it still works.
Yeah. As things start to progress in the movie and you slowly start to realize that the end of the world is happening and you're going to watch it from this kind of small pocket in this small town, you know?
Yeah, which I think was like the best way to really tell this story.
Amazing.
Honestly.
And they reference that, you know, people are going to churches, you know, the world is preparing for this thing that's happening.
You even see like with his reaction though, like even he is like shocked, like they're going to like churches and things like that.
And you have this man who has this troubled past with his faith and everything, and he is finding his own route through this. You know, he's trying to examine everything from his perspective. And then we get to, for me, just overall kind of great scene. Earlier, you see this veterinarian when they're out eating lunch and everything. Very quick shot. And obviously, it's M. Night Shyamalan. Don't know if I would have put myself in that kind of pivotal role. But I think he makes up for it in the dialogue exchange that happens between him and Graham.
Okay. I found it, for me personally, a little distracting where I was just kind of like, I just kind of see M. Night and I don't really see like the character he's playing. But I guess I'll give him this. He's playing a really unlikable character and he's playing somebody who did something like really unforgivable.
Yeah.
So I guess I can give him that. But I think I kind of just would have preferred if it was like a different actor or something.
So we get to this dialogue exchange where we see all this stuff at the beginning kind of come full circle, you know. Very fast, quick shot of Graham at Ray Reddy's house. Super fast. You see the mailbox, says veterinarian, and that's it. At no point does the character describe what he's doing or what he does, things like that.
Yeah.
But then you kind of attribute everything to the beginning where the kids, you know, there's something going wrong with this dog and the dad doesn't want to take them to the veterinarian, you know. Now you see him avoiding this whole situation. He doesn't want to have that interaction. Which
makes so much more sense.
Yeah,
now.
But he gets this call from Ray Reddy that something's happening in his house, and then it immediately hangs up. So Graham takes it upon himself to be like, you know what? I'm going over to that house and I'm going to figure out what's going on. And there's this exchange where Graham's in the driveway, and I love the recollection that M. Night kind of gives with the events of everything. It feels very like someone who went through a situation like that, and they are trying to think of every way to explain that they're sorry, but they can't, you know? And I think that's why I like that scene so much, is it kind of organically arrives to the point of I'm sorry. But his way of doing that is kind of just recollecting the events. Like, you know, I fell asleep at the wheel. You know, had it been a second earlier, I might have avoided this whole situation, you know, things like that. And it was just like, that feels very genuine, you know, when you watch people in documentaries or things kind of recollect events. That's what that feels like, you know. And he just explains, you know, I made you question your faith. Very important line, and he's very apologetic for that. And he knows that the damage that he caused on this person's life, you know, and especially in this small town community, they know he's not at church anymore. They know he's not, you know, being the man of his religion that he's supposed to be, you know, and that's such like a depressing angle for someone who did something that was pretty much an accident, you know.
Right.
And they're kind of left without explanation. He doesn't know how to comfort this person. He doesn't know how to say, this was my fault. I did this to you. And he tries to, you know, in the best way explain his thought process behind it. But at the end of the day, he knows that's not enough. He knows there's no way to.
It's not going to bring her back.
And it's not going to bring him back to the point of being this person who helps other people, who, you know, gets people through the rough times in their life, you know. And that's such an interesting part. Like, again, you have this whole alien invasion side, but you have this personal side of this man really questioning his faith, and he's going through this otherworldly situation. What is he left with? You know, how does he move on? How does he come to a logical explanation with the things going on in his life right now? You know, That to me is just such a fascinating, collision of ideas. Like you don't really see that, especially in invasion movies or anything. You don't see like the super personal side. Granted, it is themes that you see in other horror movies of processing grief, things like that,
or religious symbolism, things like that.
One thing that I will really attribute to this movie is, again, finding your faith again, finding it. What would that look like? What would that? How do you get to that point? And this movie shows that. It's so, for me, just kind of underrated to have that aspect in this movie.
Yeah, and I think the scene that encapsulates that a lot for me personally is like the scene where he's going to pick up like his son's inhaler. I think that really shows how lost these people are. And it really shows that they need somebody like Graham to be there for them, because you see like she's so lost. She starts like kind of venting to him and he has to like basically explain to her like, I'm not like a pastor or anything anymore, but even with that though, he still like ends up listening to her and he still ends up kind of at the end of the scene, it's funny, he's all, don't ever talk to her again, or don't interact with her, and I think that scene like really shows it's like, even with his faith being gone, there's still a bit of faith in him with that he still is caring about people, even with his lost faith and everything that he eventually does regain back. But you see in that scene, it's like, he does, I don't know, that's kind of what made me kind of find the character fascinating. It was like, he still listens to her, he could have just said like, no, I don't want to do that or anything, but he still like takes the time to like listen to her, which was just was such a shocking thing to me. Like now, like on a rewatch, it's like I don't know, it shows his character for sure.
And I think it's something that is not fully going in the opposite direction. Obviously you have him losing his faith, but he's not in the total opposite end of now projecting that onto other people. He still takes the moment of like, this applies to me, but I'm not trying to say this towards anyone else, and that's something that says a lot of the character. He's going through this tough situation. He doesn't know how his life is going to work. He's very much just rolling with it as it goes on, but he doesn't tell other people to feel that way. I like that he's just not on the totally opposite end of,
he's lost
dismissing
all faith.
He's in
like
a questionable area, which is something that I think if you had another screenwriter, they might have just went totally opposite end, okay, now he's this person who doubts faith, things like that. He does, but it's done in a very kind of internal way.
It's more personally to him.
Exactly. And I think that's great because in those scenes, it shows that he's still, like you mentioned, listening to people, trying to provide any type of aid to them.
Somewhat advice.
But back to that scene with Ray Reddy, I love the ending of that scene. Granted, in these types of situations, word of mouth is something that I think is going to play a very big role if something like this were to ever happen. And obviously back then, the internet wasn't as super available as it is now. But I just love the line of Ray Reddy just being like, he's piecing things together in his head, and he just drops little information of like, none of these crop circles are really near water, and he's like, it's just an idea I have. But, I'm going to go over to the lake, and that's something that I feel like if we were going through a situation, you would hear word of mouth of people thinking it's this. Oh, go to a church, go near water, things like that. And I love that kind of unknown aspect, but also people kind of spreading that information, even though they're not 100% sure,
Right. Yeah.
And that's something that is just, I think, aids a lot into this movie's kind of paranoia aspect, kind of that mass hysteria of like, I think it's this, I think it's that, and I love that line. He's just, he's kind of piecing it together in his head of what he thinks he should do,
Yeah. Especially when like those kids go to like the library and everything, you see how like the owner of the library is acting. He's all, they've been playing this soda commercial like 12 times, you know, it's a sign. This is like a conspiracy, you know, he's thinking it's like a conspiracy theory and everything, you know, but that's how somebody would probably react in a situation like that, you know? So it's also kind of cool to see that like kind of perspective also.
And then right at the end of the conversation, he's like, by the way, I found one of those things in my pantry and I locked it in. Don't go in there. And drives off.
I like that he just reveals that last bit.
I know. It's so...
He's all, bye.
It feels very clunky, but I don't know. I like the instant aspect of like, wait a minute. I was like, what the fuck? And then obviously Graham feels the need, I guess, to go in there, and that is such a great scene of like,
that was like the scariest scene for me in that whole film. He's just all looking at it with like the mirror of like the knife,
building tension in a great way. I love how he goes, kind of tries to look under, and he's basically about to leave, and then nope, that second thought in his head of, I need to go back, I have to see, you know, he grabs the knife and he's looking. And I love how it's not a jump scare or anything. You just see this claw kind of reach out and try to grab him. No crazy sound plays. Literally all you hear is just the nails hitting the ground. And just that image in my head, oh my God, that really freaked me out. Yeah. Totally just, I was like, holy shit. And then obviously he screams, cuts the fingers off. I guess this would be a good point now to kind of get into the main criticisms I hear with this movie that really bring it down for people is the logic behind the aliens falters. It is enough to where it pulls people out of the movie. For instance, you have this intergalactic alien species, and here they are. They're stuck inside a pantry door and they can't make it out, you know? Or you have all these advanced alien race. How do they not know that water is something that will hurt them? Yet they go to a planet that's pretty much all water, you know? You hear a lot of these complaints. Wallied, what is your take on that? Is it something that pulls you out of the movie and it really kind of ruins it? Because this is something that I hear a lot of people, like the moment I bring up science, you hear the aliens are stupid. Like you can't get inside they can't get out of a pantry, you know? And I'm just like, that's not really the point, you know?
When I first saw it, it did pull me out of it a bit because I was like, wait, they're supposed to be like an advanced alien species, right? But I think rewatching it, I kind of had a bit more of an idea of like, I feel like the aliens for them, like this is kind of like all foreign to them, and they probably don't have like much info about like Earth and everything like that. So they're kind of like, I kind of maybe see these as like maybe like they're alien scouts, like they're scouting the Earth and everything like that.
They drop that line. They hint at that earlier in the movie.
Right.
You know, they would send scouts ahead to survey the planet, you know?
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. They foreshadowed that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of saw it as that. I just will say though, my kind of complaint with the aliens is that they just reveal the aliens, you know? And I think it would have been better if we got maybe like the aliens perspective, because you get it a bit in like that sequence where you see like the first person alien perspective of him getting like defeated and getting hit by like with the bat and everything. I think that would have been like much more like scarier if we didn't know like what the alien looked like, but maybe you got to see like its fingers or its shadows, you know, which is why I loved so much of that like dread and tension throughout. So I would just say for me personally, that was kind of like the one scene I think that took me out of it, just because it felt like so out of left field from everything you watched.
I think why it doesn't hinder me is just these species, you know, what if they're put through an extreme situation, you know, anytime an animal or, you know, an animal's survival is on the line, you're going to see it being pushed to extreme situations, you know? Like, let's say this alien race, like, this is their last effort to kind of, you know, save themselves, you know? Yeah. And people are like, well, why would they go to a planet with water on it? Well, why did humans back in the day fight crazy, you know, animals that could literally kill them in an instant, you know? Because our survival is on the line, you know, that's something that we had to do, and we had to put ourselves in those situations because that's the only way out, you know? And that's what I kind of dismiss, these aliens doing this. They go to these places near water. They're probably on their last push towards survival, you know? This might be their last stop. So obviously in that, they're not making the most smartest decisions, you know? They're pushed to that last instinct. I don't really agree with the criticism of, well, they're smart, they're this, why are they on this planet? You know, I'm just like, again, that's what any species would do if their survival was on the line. You know, you would put yourself in a dangerous situation. And then the thing with the doors, I mean, the alien, he breaks out of it, you know, he's not stuck in there for the rest of the movie and they find his body at the end. No, he gets out of that pantry. Yeah. And I guess the only thing that calls into question for me is how does M. Night, of all people, lock this thing in there?
I would love to know that.
Yeah. But again, he breaks out of it.
He's powerful.
That's just something that I'm like, it doesn't fully bring me out of it. You know, like the alien still gets out. It makes it out. Which
is honestly a scary thought. Yeah. That it even got out, you know, especially with its cut fingers and everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, the decisions in the movie, maybe they could have been done maybe just a little bit better. Maybe rather than locking him in a pantry, you could have had something else happen. Or
I don't know, put a lock or something. Yeah. Or, I don't know. Something like that.
So, granted, I think the criticism is, I hear it, but I feel like it gets to the degree of,
I don't think it's as bad as people make it out.
People make it out to like make or break the movie.
Yeah. You know? And I think rewatching it, I think really helped because I'm like, honestly, it's like this actually surprisingly works for me. This is like surprisingly connecting with me a lot more with that alien aspect. You know, it's like, I think now having that idea of like, wait, these aliens are kind of inexperienced, you know, and they're kind of scouting the earth, you know, it's like, at least that's my interpretation of it personally. You know, it's like, that actually just makes much more sense now. You know, it's like they are going off those like survival instincts and everything, you know, they don't really have much left. You know, I kind of interpret it as like maybe their home planet was maybe destroyed or something and they're maybe trying to look for like a new home.
Then we get to the climax of the film. The family decides to stay at the house rather than go to anywhere other location or something like that.
Yeah, it's almost like a safe haven for them at this point.
And they board up the windows and everything. And their plan is to just stay there and hopefully, you know, this thing kind of passes on its own.
This is where I think personally the film hits for me the hardest emotionally. It's like, especially with like the making like different dinner items together, you know, they eventually just kind of like connect together and they're not like having to make something like sandwiches. However, the scene where they are like kind of starting to eat finally is like, that is so emotionally hard hitting of like, this is probably going to be like the last time they have like a meal together. Like that's a really sad thought to think of, you know, and you seeing them just kind of like arguing with one another and everything, especially with like Morgan and Graham. I think this is where they really showcases like, he's kind of finally being a little bit more open emotionally because you see throughout, like he's very emotionally distant with his kids. He's very cold and distant to like most of the people, but obviously he tries to be a little bit more open. But I feel like in that scene, I think he finally starts to be a lot more emotional and, you know, they're finally hugging together and everything. Like that is such like it's almost kind of like melancholic. I saw it as more like melancholic for me personally.
And it's a good scene. And it's something that it doesn't feel out of place. It feels like Graham's kind of reached his breaking point, you know, like he's tired of kind of holding all this emotion, holding all this,
he's been bottling it up for so much of the film and him just kind of like finally opening up and finally just being able to like just let go is just like, it's like it's just hard hitting. It's just so heartbreaking, but it's also just like, it's a nice sense of relief, you know, it feels like a weight has like been lifted off his shoulders.
Yeah. And it's rekindles everything. Obviously the kids earlier, like he says, you know, he wishes that the uncle was his dad. You know, you have this family that the dad's doing his best, but for the kids, that's not enough.
They don't really see it like that, you know, and that's understandable because they don't really understand.
Yeah, they don't. And not only does he have the stress of that whole situation, but he's dealing with this end of the world event. Like,
it's just like,
how do you hold it together?
Exactly. Yeah. There's so much on his plate at that point.
Yeah. And then we get to this part where they're, you know, kind of in the basement and everything.
It's such a great scene.
Great scene, great tension building. You hear all these noises.
The sound design is fantastic, by the way. That's one thing I think throughout this film this has. It's just like really great sound design, whether it's through the aliens or just through like the ambiance of like the home.
Yeah.
It still just is able to like keep you on the edge of your seat. And it's able to create like a really eerie atmosphere.
Yeah. Great scene that I kind of skipped over, but when they're using the baby monitors and they hear these aliens like talking to each other, that sound in really just adds to like a what the hell is this? And I just love how it instantly just cuts off. Like that's just man, that really just adds to the fear of it.
Yeah.
At least for me, I'm just like, oh my God, that would, I always put myself in this situation. I'm like, imagine hearing that. Like,
my heart would drop.
Do?
I'd be like, oh, smacks, we're screwed.
But yeah, I love that. And then past that night sequence, we get the alien. It's revealed in this kind of great way. Like I love the light kind of going through the basement.
Yeah.
And then you just see one of the aliens' hands just grab.
The way this film uses flashlights too, I also like really love also. I love that it's like, I'm guessing it's kind of like the natural light from the flashlights, but my God, does it add just so much more to like the tension and the scariness of the film, especially in the basement.
Yeah. And you see just the hand grab Morgan and it's just like quick shot. And then boom, flashlight falls on the ground and the camera just stays on it. And you just hear, you know, them trying to get this thing off. I don't know. I really like that.
I really love it. And I love like the scene that after of like where Graham is like trying to save his son's life. And you kind of see like the faith starts coming back to him. And I think what I saw from that was like, it's because it's somebody really close to him. I think he finally realized like, you know, like him kind of talking to him, making him feel like comfortable, making him feel like coming back from like that kind of almost like panic attack sort of thing. It's like, it's hard hitting, but it's also just like you see like his faith being like restored back to him with this situation.
Really just elevates that scene. We get Graham, obviously Morgan's having his asthma attack. They don't have his medicine. Creates a urgency to this whole situation. But we see Graham doing something that he hasn't done in a long time, which is obviously he starts to pray again.
Yeah.
And that's such a big moment. And granted, obviously the dialogue might not be the greatest, but I really enjoy that. I love the reveal of him praying and, you know, he knows that now he's seeing the other side of it. He's noticing the signs and he's noticing the way faith has been protecting his family. And it's so apparent to him in this situation. Morgan has asthma, closes off his lungs, and that probably ends up saving him from that poison that would have entered in his lungs, you know. Love that reveal of the tying together of the story with the mom and how she died and her last words. And he couldn't,
that was great.
He couldn't make sense of it. Cool. You know, he couldn't make sense of it in the moment. And here he is, you know, after so much time has passed and he still doesn't know why she said that. And his logical explanation, how he explains to the brothers, her brain was just firing on all signals and everything. And, you know,
that was the last thing she thought of. It was like a baseball game.
Yeah. And then now here he is. Aliens. Granted, maybe this could have been done in a little bit better of a way. It does feel somewhat clunky, but for me, it works.
Yeah, it felt a little rushed for me personally.
Yeah. Ties into Meryl, you know, taking the baseball bat and obviously protecting the family. That
was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I kind of saw that as like him hitting this baseball bat as like him kind of finally letting go of like the past and everything. Cause we get a little bit of hints of it, of him going to like the military building and everything like that. And you see like he ended up kind of like throwing that dream away of like going into like a big baseball career. So I see him like hitting this bat and like, you know, hip being broken is like, it's finally gone.
Yeah.
He's finally moved on from that past.
Yeah.
Which maybe I'm looking a little bit to it.
No,
like I kind of saw it as that.
I pull the same, you know, kind of notes away. Like it's something that maybe is too on the nose with the swing away line, things like that. But for me, it really works, you know.
I'm like, that makes so much sense though. Also, you know, in the context of that scene.
Exactly. And the reveal, obviously, I really liked it, but CGI now is a little dated. I wish they would have went for something more practical.
Yeah, either that or just kind of maybe, again, I think if they showed it in like the first person perspective of like maybe his hand or something, I think that could have been a lot cooler because the Babadook did that also of like showing the first perspective of like the monster. Yeah. And that's also why that film, I really loved that film a lot. You know, I do kind of wish Signs did something similar.
There was a great reveal that I love. He pulls out the TV and he's getting it ready for the kids.
Oh my God.
And just the TV comes into the camera view reflection. And you just see the silhouette. I was like, yeah, that was great.
That scared the crap out of me. It still scares me now. I've seen this movie like a few times and everything.
And now when you see the alien and everything is standing there, obviously the CGI doesn't hold up really well at all. I would have hoped they would have done something more practical, but I think the lighting in the scene really works because it's not fully lit.
And I love how something I kind of noticed too was like the hand was like matched with like the Morgan's like shirt. I thought that was like a really cool little detail I just noticed. And even speaking of like the signs and everything, the water cups all over. I don't know why. That was like a really cool. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, like that's like, you didn't even realize like why all the cups were there, but maybe she had some kind of like sixth sense or something.
Yeah, no, that was, everything has that purpose, you know?
Everything's kind of like a sign.
Yeah.
You know?
And it ends up saving the family, you know? And like you mentioned with that camera, we find out that this is the one that was in that pantry, you know? Fingers are cut off. And he tries to, I don't know, take Morgan and put this poison in him. And it is just like this whole crazy scene.
That was scary.
Yeah.
But I was surprised the alien didn't really put up a fight though. You know, I know he's not like super experienced or anything, but I was like, he could have put at least up like a little bit of a fight, you know, just to make it a little bit more of like intense, you know, make it more of like, are they going to get out of this situation? You know, I think that's something I think could have been a little bit better in that sequence also.
But he gets to the scene where he starts praying and everything. He knows that someone is out there watching over his family this whole time. And he obviously fell out of that and he wasn't able to see the perspective that he has now.
Yeah.
You know?
It was a lot more foggy. It was very blurry, you know.
And that's something that we find a lot of comfort in, you know, us as people. It's like when we get to that moment of, you know, your past traumatic stuff and everything, sometimes you kind of find out maybe that stuff was happening for a reason. Maybe I was going through that situation. Now I know so much more information. Now I'm coming out of this a much stronger person. And now from this other perspective, outside perspective that I have, you're almost like, I'm a better person now for it.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like with that, it's like he's finally come to like that acceptance stage by the end of the film.
Yeah. And it's great. Like I love that climax. And I love the end of this movie is so just subtle, simple, doesn't over explain anything, doesn't really get into the whole post alien invasion thing. Yeah. I just love the simple shot of him putting back on his pastor uniform and the movie ends there. That's such a great way to end the movie. Nothing's said or anything like that. It's very simple, you know, but it's such a strong and poignant message, you know?
Yeah. I love the shot before that where it's like the family's like all together and you see like it's like zooms out and you see like the broken window and it like transitions to like the winter. That was like a really cool like transition. The ending is really cool. I will say though, I do wish there was maybe like one scene of like maybe where he's kind of like, not like nothing crazy, but just him like maybe interacting with the people again now as like the father, you know? I think that could have been like a really cool, like nice conclusion to kind of like show like also the small towns like perspective now.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought it was like a really great ending.
Mm-hmm. This movie is, I feel like people are in one of two boats with this movie. Either they really like it or you know, some of the aspects kind of don't work for them. Mm-hmm. For me, this movie works on a lot of levels. The emotional side works really well. The aliens invasion side works really well. This movie, I feel like is how you should take notes on how you want to do, like, you know, maybe a horror movie, things like that. Again, the perspectives that they show, I love the use of just ordinary human objects to kind of show this perspective of these aliens, like with the camera footage or with the baby monitors. You know, you're hearing distorted noises, or, you know, the flashlights, things like that. I love that it's these outside aliens kind of we're seeing through the lens of just normal everyday objects, you know, things like that. It really adds to the scares. It adds to the tension. And by the end of it, you're just kind of left with, you know, kind of a stronger message than I feel like going into it you might have had. Because obviously going into it, people were just like aliens. That's what this movie's about, you know, crop circles, things like that.
I feel like the alien stuff is so secondary to like what the main movie's like actually about. I'm like, wait, this is more of like a drama than like a horror film.
Yeah. But the alien stuff still really works, you know, even for it being not the main point. They put a lot of thought and care into it. They put a lot of, you know, like we said, horror aspects. You see this alien invasion happening, but you also get to feel the paranoia. You get to feel the mass hysteria of
the
people,
anxiety.
Yeah, trying to wrap their heads around this. You know, are you going to get people like Meryl who are really obsessed with this thing, or are you going to get people like a Graham who are maybe just trying to focus on their family? You know, they're not trying to care about the outside world that's going on around them, you know? Because that's how people are, you know? You might get people who focus on one or the other, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This movie really works for me. The music's great. Sound design's great. Obviously, some of the CGI doesn't hold up. Obviously, some of the writing is a little clunky. Maybe the message of, you know, signs and things like that could have been maybe a little bit, you know, better portrayed, you know, maybe just a little bit more kind of restrained. But I feel like this movie has a lot of great subtleties to it that really work.
Which was just surprising rewatching this, for sure.
So I'm thinking score-wise, for me, I'm definitely around like a 9 out of 10. It's not perfect, but I think for the time it came out in, and obviously now looking back, it was a very pivotal movie. You know, this movie was kind of the last in Shyamalan's kind of... right after this movie, that's where people started to notice the decline of everything. Unfortunately, so.
I guess. I mean, The Village is still really great personally for me, but I can see it's not like everyone's thing.
Yeah, this is kind of what people say was, you know, the last of the 3 movies that he did really well, you know, and then things just kind of started going downhill and everything.
After Earth.
Oh my God.
I do not like it. Oh my God.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So I'm probably around like a 9 out of 10.
Nice. Yeah. This film is a lot better on a rewatch for me. I felt like it gave me a new perspective on really like what this film was offering, and that it's a very compelling drama of somebody going through a really hard time in their lives while also having to deal with like the craziness of what's going on in the world, you know. Seeing this in a new perspective was also really great, because now you get to see the faith aspect of the film, and you see how faith and religion plays a very big part in this film. And I think it's easily one of my favorite portrayals of it I've seen in a film that doesn't feel like too on the nose or too religious, like a Zack Snyder film or something like that. But I love seeing like somebody going through that journey, and then kind of by the end, their hope is restored, their faith is kind of back, and everything. And I love that. I love that whole journey throughout the film. I will say some of the alien stuff, while I do really like it, I do wish they didn't really reveal it, because I feel like all the tension in that kind of whole climactic sequence was kind of gone. I was like, oh, okay. It's okay though. I don't think it's bad or anything. But I will say, like, as much as I do really love the alien stuff, I just that reveal for me was like really kind of what brought it down just a bit for me.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't I still really love the film nonetheless. It doesn't like ruin it. No, this is really great. Lots of really great scares. I was surprised how slow this film was too. I was kind of like, wow, like this film is a lot like slower than I remember, but I love how much of it is slow, and it adds a lot of like really good payoffs and everything too, especially in that basement sequence. Yeah, great music choices. The score from James Newton Howard was great. There's not a lot of score though in this film, but when they use it, it's really good, and it really adds a lot of great tension in the film. The acting's really great, even though I know Mel Gibson's not that great of a person, and same with Joaquin Phoenix, but they give really great performances in this film, and I was actually really shocked like how well the performances have aged. It's kind of crazy to think they're in a movie together, you know? The child acting's really great too. I think they give really great performances, especially Abigail Breslin. She does a really fantastic job. Yeah, easily one of the best alien films I've seen, or kind of alien films. I would say it's more of like a drama for me personally, but yeah, I really, really love this film. Easily one of my favorites of M. Night's. I think this is actually my second favorite of his.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I really, really love this film a lot. And yeah, really just loved this way more than I thought I did before. But yeah, I would say score-wise for me personally, I'd be at like 8.5. Nice. 8.5 out of 10 for me personally.
I feel like I'm biased towards aliens. Obviously, it's something that I really find scary and things like that. I just feel like we haven't really gotten something like this, you know,
I'm surprised we haven't.
I just feel like the time for aliens kind of came and went, and it sucks because I feel like, again, like for me, that birthday scene, man, that gave me nightmares when I was a kid. Like
Same.
that, I couldn't sleep.
That stuck with. It's just like it's just burned into your memory. Yeah. You know, it's crazy how long that scene has stuck with me over like the last 10 years and everything.
And it's so simple. Like it's just such a quick shot. Maybe 4 seconds, you know, and yet it has one of the most impactful scares I've seen in a movie. And I don't know, it's just
so short. Yeah.
I feel like directors, you know, take note, you know, like showing your monster, things like that. There's other things you can do to the image besides, you know, added effects like the big loud noises or something. This like putting it through that filter of that VHS, man, that just the distorted image.
It makes it so much more disturbing. Yeah. That's also why I love like a film like Lake Mungo so much, you know, it's because it uses a lot of like that kind of footage of like.
And then you find out like with, you know, like you mentioned with the hand camouflaging, like this thing doesn't want to be seen. This thing's probably afraid, you know? Yeah. And that just makes me more afraid.
Yeah. It's like, again, like a survival instinct.
Yeah. And, oh man, that's just like, God, that's terrifying. Yeah. But yeah, really for me, just one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it if you haven't seen it. I will say maybe if you've seen some other horror movies, this one might not be as effective in some of those horror elements, but this builds up tension in such a great way.
If you're looking for more of like a drama, I would say like go for it, honestly, because this film is really honestly more of like a drama film than like or more of a family drama, honestly, than like a horror film for me personally.
But yeah, I mean, it does every aspect really well. You know, it's one of those few movies that blends together those two sides in a great way, and it has a good payoff. You know, definitely. I feel like most other movies, you know, if they try to go about this, it wouldn't work in the same way.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, Wallied, what are we going to be talking about next time?
Yeah, so the next, so we're still doing a little bit of the childhood favorites. However, I'm going to change it up. We're going to do, for me, like films that I watched maybe once or twice as a kid, but yet they've still had a big impact on me. And I feel like as I've gotten older, they've gotten a lot better. So this film is one that has always stuck with me. I've seen it a few times now in the past year or so. But this film is just, it still blows my mind. And it's still crazy to me how this film pushes like CG animation to like its utter limits. And it's crazy too, because it's from 2011. So I'm going to recommend a film called Rango. It has Johnny Depp in it, and it's from Gore Verbinski, which is crazy. But it is one of the most insane, bizarre films I've ever seen, which is crazy for like a family film. And you'll see when you watch it. Have you seen it or anything? I don't know.
I've seen parts of it. I've never finished the whole thing.
Okay.
But the look of it and everything is just so intriguing.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's still insane to me. Like, it's CG. It is very funny at times. There's a lot of incredible action sequences in the film that I'll get into during the discussion. But this is a film that I feel like a lot of people know about, but I feel like is never in the conversation of like best movies of all time or best animated films or even like best Westerns. I haven't seen too many Westerns, but I would say it's probably so far, this is probably my favorite Western film I've seen personally. And it's actually one of the few films that's won best animated feature. That's not like a Pixar or Ghibli film, surprisingly also. But yeah, there is a lot of things I want to discuss with this film. And I'm still like in shock even after watching it for like the fourth or fifth time. I'm just like, how is this a real film? But yeah, I want to talk about Rango next episode. So if you guys don't want to be spoiled for it, I'm kind of jealous if you haven't seen it. This is one of those films I wish I could watch for the first time again, because it really is just such a mind-blowing experience of a film. But yeah, Rango from 2011.
Nice. Yeah, that'll be it for us, guys. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you'll stick around for more or check out some of our older recommendations or episodes. And if you do, let us know what you guys think. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us.
Good day and good night, mates.
We'll see you on the next one.